In November of 1910, a group of the most powerful bankers in America boarded a private train car with the blinds pulled down and disappeared for 9 days. No press, no public record, no names used, just code names. When they came back, they had designed the system that controls every dollar in your wallet to this day. This is the story of Jekyll Island, and why, for the first time in over 100 years, there is a credible alternative. My name is Ethan Cole, and a note: access to some of the site and some of its services are disabled for users located in or citizens of restricted territories. Before we get into the island, you need to understand the world those bankers were living in. In 1910, the United States did not have a central bank. It had survived financial panics in 1873, 1893, and a brutal one in 1907. In that 1907 panic, J.P. Morgan himself had to personally bail out the banking system by locking other bankers in his library and refusing to let them leave until they agreed to pool their reserves. The system was chaotic, fragile, and, depending on who you ask, ripe for a takeover by the banks that kept bailing it out. Here is the uncomfortable question nobody asks in school. If the Federal Reserve was created to protect ordinary Americans from bank panics, why was it designed in secret, by bankers, on a private island owned by a banker? Let that sit for a second. On the night of November 22, 1910, Senator Nelson Aldrich, the chairman of the National Monetary Commission and the father-in-law of John D. Rockefeller, Jr., quietly assembled a guest list. The attendees included Frank Vanderlip, president of National City Bank; Henry Davison, a senior partner at J.P. Morgan; Benjamin Strong, who would go on to become the first head of the New York Federal Reserve; Paul Warburg, a partner at Kuhn Loeb and the man widely credited as the intellectual architect of the plan; and A. Piatt Andrew from the Treasury Department. Together, these men represented an estimated 1/4 of the entire wealth of the world. They took a private train to Brunswick, Georgia, then a boat to Jekyll Island, a private hunting club owned by, you guessed it, J.P. Morgan and his circle. Frank Vanderlip later wrote about it openly. He said, and I quote, "We were so secretive, so furtive in our ways, that we actually began to look like conspirators." His words. Not a theory. A confession. What they built over those 9 days was a blueprint for the Federal Reserve System, a network of 12 regional banks that would hold the nation's gold, issue currency, set interest rates, and act as a lender of last resort to commercial banks. The plan was dressed up as a public institution, but the key detail is this: the regional Federal Reserve banks are not owned by the government. They are owned by their member banks, the very private commercial banks that helped write the plan. Shareholders of the Federal Reserve banks include the largest private banks in the country. The Fed sets the price of money, meaning interest rates, for every mortgage, every car loan, every savings account, every business in America. And it was designed that way on purpose, in secret, by the people who would benefit most from it. Now, the Federal Reserve does do real things. It backstops banks during crises. It regulates the money supply. Defenders say without it, the 1929 crash would have been even worse. Critics say it also enabled it. This is not about demonizing the Fed. It is about understanding that the architecture of money was built by a small group of humans, in private, to serve their interests first. And architecture has consequences. If you are finding this valuable, if you want to keep connecting the dots between the history of money and the future of finance, hit subscribe and drop a like right now. It genuinely helps us make more of these videos on DeFi and the internet computer, and we have a lot more coming. Speaking of money that works differently, this is a good moment to talk about ultra liquidity, a decentralized lending and stablecoin protocol built entirely on-chain on the Internet computer. Here is the part that directly connects to what we are discussing. Ultra Liquidity is designed to issue a yield-bearing stablecoin called UXUSD. The idea is that instead of a dollar sitting in your wallet doing nothing, or worse, losing value to inflation, UXUSD is designed to pay you a yield just for holding it. That yield comes from the preferred shares of Strategy, the company formerly known as MicroStrategy, specifically their STRC, STRD, STRF, and STRK preferred share series, plus a similar preferred share from Strive. These are real-world income-generating assets backing a digital dollar. No central banker deciding the rate. No secret meeting on an island. The yield mechanics are baked into the asset itself. Ultra Liquidity is pre-launch, so there are no live yield figures to quote yet. But the architecture is designed so the yield flows to you, the holder, not to an institution in the middle. Everything runs on-chain. Non-custodial. If this sounds like the kind of money system you have been waiting for, click the link in the description below. Take a look for yourself. So fast forward 112 years. The architecture laid out on Jekyll Island is still running, and it has three fundamental properties that, once you see them, you cannot unsee. First, permission. Every dollar you hold exists because a bank created it as a loan. You need permission to open an account, permission to send money internationally, permission to borrow. Second, opacity. Interest rate decisions happen in closed-door FOMC meetings. The Fed's full balance sheet was not audited by Congress until after the 2008 crisis. And even then, it took a freedom of information fight. Third, asymmetry. When the system works, banks profit. When it breaks, taxpayers absorb the loss. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is the documented history of 2008, when the biggest banks in America were bailed out with public money while ordinary homeowners lost their houses. Here is the reframe. Bitcoin was not invented in a vacuum. Satoshi Nakamoto published the Bitcoin white paper in October 2008. 1 month after Lehman Brothers collapsed. The timing was not a coincidence. The Genesis block of Bitcoin even contains a newspaper headline embedded in the code, "Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks." That was the founding statement of the entire crypto movement, written directly into the blockchain itself. Crypto solved the permission problem brilliantly. Anyone with an internet connection can hold Bitcoin. No bank account required. No identity papers. No approval. But early crypto had its own problems. It was volatile, clunky to use as actual money, and the infrastructure for lending and earning yield still relied on centralized middlemen, crypto banks, in effect, that carried the same risks as traditional banks. We saw that with FTX, with Celsius, with BlockFi. The Jekyll Island problem did not disappear. It just moved onto a new island with worse lighting. This is where decentralized finance, DeFi, makes its actual case. Not the hype version, the architectural version, the honest version. A well-designed DeFi protocol flips all three of the Jekyll Island properties. Permission becomes open access. You connect a wallet. You interact with the protocol. No gatekeeper. Opacity becomes transparency. The code is public. Every transaction is on-chain. Anyone can audit the rules in real time. And asymmetry. Well, this is the hard one, and it is where design really matters. In a protocol where the rules are enforced by code, there is no board of directors deciding to take a bonus while depositors take a loss. The code runs the same way for everyone. Ultra Liquidity is designed around exactly these principles. It is a decentralized lending and AMM protocol. That means automated market maker. the same underlying technology that powers the biggest DEXs in crypto, running entirely on-chain on the Internet Computer blockchain. Users sign in with Internet Identity, which is itself a privacy-preserving, non-custodial authentication system. The protocol supports native Bitcoin and Ethereum through on-chain canisters, effectively non-custodial BTC and ETH wallets that live on the blockchain itself. All funds are non-custodial. There is no ultra-liquidity executive who can freeze your account, just as there was no one at Jekyll Island who had your interests at heart. And then there is UXUSD, the stablecoin we touched on in the ad break. Think about what a stablecoin really is. It is an attempt to create digital money that holds its value. Most stablecoins do that by being backed by real dollars sitting in a bank account, which means you are right back to a bank, right back to permission, right back to the Jekyll Island architecture. Ultra-liquidity's approach is different by design. UXUSD is backed by income-generating preferred shares, financial instruments that pay out yields by their nature. So the stablecoin is not just stable. It is designed to pay you a yield as long as you hold it in your wallet. The yield flows to the holder, not to the institution in the middle. Those preferred shares, STRC, STRD, STRF, and STRK from Strategy, plus a preferred share from Strive, are currently held in a brokerage account while the tokenization infrastructure is built out. Once tokenized, which is planned for October, they are designed to be held within the protocol itself. No custodian in the chain. That is the roadmap from the current architecture to a fully on-chain, non-custodial, yield-bearing dollar. Now, the obvious pushback. Code can have bugs. Smart contract exploits are real. Hundreds of millions of dollars have been lost to them. So how does ultra-liquidity address the security problem? The one area where the traditional systems armies of compliance lawyers and auditors arguably do add value? Ultra-liquidity built something called UL-MASH, the Ultra-Liquidity Multi-Model Agentic Scanning Harness. It is their on-chain implementation of the multi-model agentic security approach that Microsoft introduced as M-. And the benchmark results for Microsoft's M-, published on the Microsoft Security blog in May of 2026, are striking. On the CyberGym public benchmark, 1,507 real-world vulnerabilities, Microsoft's M- scored 88.45% success, about 5 points ahead of the next entry. It found 21 out of 21 planted vulnerabilities in a test system with 0 false positives. It discovered 16 new Windows CVEs, 4 of them critical remote code execution flaws, during Patch Tuesday testing. UL-MASH is built to work the same way. It orchestrates over 100 specialized agents across multiple models in a 5-stage pipeline. Prepare, scan, validate, deduplicate, prove. And nothing gets flagged without a working proof of concept trigger. It runs entirely on the Internet Computer as Rust canisters, meaning the security scanning itself is on-chain, with no external servers in the loop. To be clear, those benchmark numbers belong to Microsoft's M-, and UL-MASH has not yet been independently tested or benchmarked on ultra-liquidity. But the architecture is the same, built to the same standard. Let's zoom back out to Jekyll Island for a moment. Those 9 men on that island in 1910 were not cartoon villains. They were solving a real problem. The financial panics were genuinely destabilizing. But they solved it in a way that concentrated power in the hands of the people who already had it. The lesson is not that they were evil. The lesson is that the design of money matters more than the intentions of any individual. And for 100 years, we had no alternative architecture. We had gold, we had barter, and we had the bank. That is it. Now, there is a third option. code that runs the same rules for everyone. Assets that pay yields to their holders by design, not by the grace of a committee. Lending that is over-collateralized and transparent. Governance that happens on-chain through token holders rather than in private rooms. This is not utopia. There are real risks, real limitations, and real work still to be done. But for the first time in over a century, the architecture of money is genuinely contestable. In the next video, we are going to go even deeper into the specific mechanics of how on-chain lending protocols are designed to stay solvent without a bailout, and why the Internet Computer's canister architecture might be the most important piece of infrastructure in crypto that almost nobody is talking about. Subscribe so you do not miss it. And if the idea of a stablecoin that pays you a yield just for holding it in your wallet caught your attention, the link is in the description below. Do your own research. The architecture is worth understanding.